What's up, guys? Welcome back to the shop. Welcome back to the channel. As you can see behind me here, our boy Homer is up on the lift. So we've got to get ready to stab in his transmission, torque converter, drive shaft, transcooler, and go through his rear end. So that's what we're going to do on this episode. To be honest with you, it's been so long since I've been under Homer, I really didn't even know what's under there. So let's go find out together. And because of all this big stuff sticking up in the air, I can't get Homer all the way to the ceiling. So my favorite, I'm going to be working in a chair. This is Buster Radio Garage. Let's get after it. Oh, boy. Now, I could get used to this. Sitting in the old lazy boy chair here, underneath my car, off my back. But anyway, let me flip you around, and it is ugly under here. All right, so let's shine some light on this situation. So we've still got all of Homer's old fuel lines in here. Run all the way down the frame rail, professionally installed with zip ties around my emergency brake cable. So, you know, that's right. And they go all the way up to the front. So we've got to get all of this ripped out. Yeah. So we're going to get rid of that. We're going to get rid of this emergency brake cable. I've got some new shocks, so we're going to get those installed. Going to clean up this rear end, make sure it's okay, get all this cleaned up because that's like nasty. Get rid of this emergency brake cable on this side. That's where I've done some chopping and hacking last year. Got our flex plate installed already. Here's the underneath of Homer. For those of you that are like just sitting back just waiting to see that. But anyway, so let's get to work. I want to get all this crap out of here, cut out. And man, I am comfortable in this chair. Yeah, this is tighter than 2 coats of paint, people, and I'm telling you. All right, well, let's get to work. I'm going to start with these fuel lines, get all that jazz cut out, ripped out of here, get the emergency brake cables ripped out, get them gone. And then we'll just start building it back, doing a little bit of painting, making it, putting some lipstick on the old pig. Sorry, Homer. Oh, mercy. All right, guys, let's get these fuel lines cut out. All right, on today's episode, I got my phone being held up by an old roll of Teflon tape with a lug nut in it. And I ain't even kidding you. So let's get to cutting. Got a lot of jazz up in here. This is new fuel line, so I don't want to tear it too off bad. Who put that one in there? All right. I'll be so glad to get this car done. It is great. Hopefully we can get an entire season out of him. But, nothing's ever promised. I spent my budget of zip ties on this. I can tell you that right now. All right, there's that. Okay, well, what do I got going on up here? Nothing? For what fuel line costs, this is probably $50 worth of fuel line. I mean, I probably didn't pay that. Advance probably helped me out with it, but. This little fella out of the way. That one's gone. I mean, whoever put these in was just straight lazy. Didn't even cut the tails of them. I'm going to have to fire that guy. Let's get this little fella. Oh, overachiever here, 2 of them. There we go. Let's see, let's get this one. Only got about a dozen more, I think. All right, there's that one. That one. Good night. All right, I think that's all of those. All right, y'all, we got the rest of the rubber fuel line out. It's over there with that old filter. Now we've got to get all these bolts out holding this fuel line. And judging by the looks of it, these guys got paid by the bolt. Because there are a bunch of them in here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 7 bolts holding down that little bit of fuel line. So let's get this out right quick, and then we'll get that emergency cable out of here on both sides. We'll just hack it off, and we'll start getting ready to run our new fuel lines. I'm actually waiting on some hardware for the transmission. I'm like an idiot and gave mine away. So I called our friends over there at Cope Racing Transmissions, the one that built our transmission for Homer, and they are next day airing me new shifting arms for the transmission, and then we'll bolt our new B&M shifter to those. So I want to say thank you to Mr. Cope for doing that for us. You guys go check out CRT. They are awesome. They've done nothing but be friendly to us and help us out. So shout out to John Cope on that. All right, so let's throw a little bit of liquid muscle on these things. Over there. Where's the rest of them? Let's see. There's one. There's one. There are bolts just everywhere holding this thing in here. I'm sure I'll find 1 or 6 more in here somewhere. But we'll let that liquid muscle break those loose, and then we'll jerk this crap on out of here. You gotta love wildfire lifts and the rolling tool tray. I don't even have to get out of my chair to go get my stuff. Get some. Shoot, yeah. Made short work of that. These tools here, well, anything Milwaukee, that's pretty much what I use down here. These things are handy in the shirt pocket. Love them. Some of you are probably wondering why I'm using bolt cutters. Now, I am an idiot and dangerous sometimes, but these have fuel in them, and I don't want to use a power tool. So I'm just gonna whack them off this way and get them out of here so we can pull them out. And these things are butter knife dull. All right, come out of here. All right. There's another piece over there in the pile. All right, so all I've got left is this section up here in the wheel well, which is, I'm sure there's a bolt up there, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm too lazy to take this tire off. So I'm just gonna jiggle, wiggle, jiggle, wiggle, jiggle, wiggle until it comes off. And then all of our fuel line is plumb out of the car. I think this is a vent of some sort. So we'll get rid of that too. There's our fuel cell right there. So we're gonna come down, frame wheel, just like the factory, all the way up to the pump up there, except we are running 10 AN fuel line, which is a heck of a lot bigger than what Homer come with originally. So gonna be a lot of brackets in the frame, I'm afraid. And what floorboards I got left, and you know, it's gonna be done hillbilly, I promise you. All right, guys, it's the next morning. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning right now. Went up to the house, got a couple hours sleep. Didn't film a whole lot last night because it was late and I was just trying to get after it. So let me flip you around, show you what I got done, and then we're gonna get back to work. All right, so I finished up everything underneath the car, got them old fuel lines and all that jazz out of here, and I went ahead and got the transmission stabbed, got it up there. So I gotta finish getting it bolted in. I gotta give it a little bit of jiggle wiggles to finish that up. Got the transmission blanket just kind of hanging there until we get all the shifting linkage and all that done. But anyway, so my plans right now is to go ahead and finish getting this transmission bolted in, get it completely knocked out, then obviously the drive shaft, get on back to the rear end, so on and so forth. So there it is right there. And then also on today's agenda, it's gonna be a very long day, probably a good 16-hour day down here. We're gonna go ahead and get the rest, or get all the fuel lines ran. I don't have those even touched. Get all those run, finish up the electrical, and then let's see, what else did we have left? I got a list over here. Yeah, so fuel lines, electrical, transmission, trans cooler, we gotta get it mounted. So there's a lot to do. So enough yapping, let's get back to work. All right, guys, got the transmission in, fully bolted down, ready to go. Got my flex plate, torque converter all lined up. Unfortunately, I can't remember what I'd done with the bolts. For the love of God, I don't know where they're at. So I may have to go get some of those new, which is fine. Let me show you something pretty cool under here, though, from Mr. Cope over at Cope Racing Transmissions. I don't know how well let me see if I can turn this. I actually got a plate on my transmission that says Homer. Isn't that cool? It's the little touches like that in this world that you just don't see anymore. It's little things like that. That is so cool. I love it. Thank you very much, John. Let me spin this around, give him a nice little plug. Cope Racing Transmissions. Pretty cool as well. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna go ahead and do is I got my buddy Smokey on his way over to finish wiring the car. That's gonna be done today. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the starter slapped in here so he can get all that wired in. And then I also have to find, which I lost, is the keepers and the bolts for my rear end to attach my drive shaft. Lighting's terrible, but right there. I have no clue what I've done with those either. So I gotta find those. All right, guys, finally got that starter put in. My boy Smokey's over here running the wiring, getting that all set up. Gonna go back there and change that rear end fluid, which is gonna stink out loud, and that's if I can get all the bolts out of it. But it's coming together pretty good up here. Might be able to fire Homer up next weekend. This is gonna stink. All right, guys, there we go. So we're gonna get this popped off and see exactly what's going on in there. Hopefully it's nothing too bad. This is gonna be gamey. How black that is. Yeah, boys and girls, that is gamey up in there. I don't know how it got leaves in there, but we'll take it. Get this all sprayed out, some brake clean it up real nice, and then new gasket, new oil, and be done with it. Get some. All right, guys, let's get this rear end housing cleaned up, especially around the edge, so we can get the new gasket put on. Today, I got my phone set up on a razor knife, leaning against a roll of paper towels, and I've got my old-fashioned prison lighting on. So let's get to work and get this done. And I have to reiterate, like, the smell factor here. I mean, wow. All right. What do I do with my WD? Whew, that is sharp. To be honest with you guys, this rear end didn't look too bad. Keep in mind, you have to look back, or I'll have to look, well, there's no odometer in it anymore. But this thing only had like, I can't remember, 20,000 miles on it when it was parked. Maybe closer to 30, but it wasn't much. So this thing really didn't have much dry time, and I mean, I've put more abuse on it than I've ever seen. But it is a good 9 1/4 rear end. So I'm gonna keep it. So let me get the new gasket out of the truck. We'll get it up here, get it gooped up, slap it on there, cleaned up the cover, made it look pretty cool. Get down. That looks pretty good. Sweet. All right, guys, well, I'm waiting on the differential cover and all that to dry. I'm gonna go ahead and get these shocks replaced. And yeah, 50-year-old bolts. I've got them lubed down with some old WD, but I don't know. Might have to get the old bolt buster out. Let's find out. right, guys, the usual. If you've ever done these, you know what I'm talking about. So I was able to force them top bolts out. Had to get an old jack handle as leverage, but we got them out. We didn't break the bolts. We didn't break the support, so we're good there. But these are a whole different ball of wax. So to fix those, we break out the old Sawzall. So we're just gonna hack these things off here real quick and then get our new shocks in. So let's get to cutting. See ya. All right, guys, I've got these shocks here. If you remember a couple videos back, I told you Napa was a sponsor of the channel for a minute. So these match the fronts that we had put on Homer when we first started. So these are brand new, been sitting here like 2 years. So we're gonna clean these up real quick, throw them in up there. All right, guys, I'm gonna touch base with you real quick on all what's currently going on. It has been a long day. For me, it's already been about, I think, 9 hours, 10 hours in. Let me flip you around, show where we are, give you an update, and then we're gonna keep getting back to work. I stopped filming for a little bit because, let's just be honest, it takes a lot of time to do this stuff, and you know, it is what it is. So let me catch you up. Okay, as far as the front of Homer, we got his trans cooler mounted, so I'm getting ready to run the hoses and all that back to the trans here in a minute, once I get the car back up in the air. We've got the fuel lines run into the fuel pump. So I just got to get them run up here to the carburetors, which we'll get to that here in a little bit. But what I've done is I've run my 10A in all the way back on the frame rail, all the way back to the tank. I'll show you back here. All right, so here's where my 10A in comes in now to the tank. And I'll show you the filter and all that jazz once we get it up in the air. I think that's about it for up here today. A lot of it's been underneath. We actually have all of the power and wiring is completely done to the car. So I want to thank my friend Smoke for coming and doing all of that. And I'll show you that all powered up here in just a little bit. The engine's not ready to fire yet. So hopefully by the next video, the car will be painted. We're actually going to do the first fire live for everybody. So if you haven't been part of our lives, I would definitely jump in on that. That's going to be fun because, you know, if there's any carnage, you're going to see it like everybody else. I mean, if that blower goes through the roof, you're going to see it live. So anyway, let me get the car up in the air. I'll show you where we're at with that for right now, and then I'm going to get back to work. All right, guys, cool. So I got the car raised back up. I'll kind of show you where we're at. So we've got the starter in. It's all wired up, professionally installed with zip ties. Over here is where our fuel line comes down on the frame rail. Comes over here, just continues to follow the frame rail on down. On down, on down, on down this way. Here's our power line, or our hot line. Comes on up. I still got to final mount it up here. Here's our fuel filter. Comes on up into the fuel cell here, and then our power is grounded off here to the frame rail all the way through on up through the floor into the battery box. All right, guys, buttoning up the transmission. I got the trans lines hooked up there, getting ready to put in the final bracing here so we can put it on our drive shaft. And let me show you something that is sketch level expert. Get you some of that. Transmission, back to that real quick, is final mounted, if you will, bolted down, set. We just got to get the linkage and all that put in. We're all final bolted up here. I still have to bolt in the transmission blanket or the ballistic blanket, but I'll get to that here after a bit. And then we're gonna put in, well, we're gonna clean this up and paint it, obviously, or try to if we get time. Then we get to put our candy cane drive shaft in, which is gonna look sick. And we're gonna be good to go. So let's go back here and deal with that stank. And if you know, you know. So let's get this rear end done. Well, you stinking. Get back here. Where are you going? It ain't time to clock out. Alrighty then. Good deal, Lucille. Alright guys, I went ahead and got the drive shaft mounted up here to the transmission. I'm actually waiting on a new set of rear universal joints. So that's just going to sit there, you know, for now and for the meantime. And I'm also waiting on a new set of shocks. The ones I showed you a minute ago will not fit. Who would have thought the difference between a 76 and a 79 Cordoba would have been that drastic? But it is. So we're going to hang tight on that for just the meantime. But for now, we're going to go ahead and get these torque converter bolts put in. And as you can see, I marked my torque converter before I put it in the car, so I don't have any issues finding the bolts. If you've ever done that, it's an absolute nightmare. So let's get this buttoned up real quick. That's probably going to be the end of it for today. Next week we'll finish up like the little panty-anty stuff, get the shifter put in, final assembly on everything else. And then we're going to go live with you all on first startup of Homer. And then finally, we're going to paint this car and get his decals on and a couple other special things that I haven't even like hinted on that we're going to do to Homer. They're going to be epic. I cannot wait to show you all. So in the meantime, let's get these bolts put in. Alrighty then, got my Loctite put on. Let's get this old bad boy threaded in here. These are fine thread now, so you just got to be super careful not to cross thread them. Now I know some of you are going to say, well, cross threading is, you know, God's version of Loctite, and I get it. But we're going to try to do it the regular way here. All right, just like downtown. So we'll get this one. I'm not going to torque these down until we get all four in, and then we'll do it kind of like everything else. We'll roll it around, get them down to torque, mark it with a paint pen, roll it around, and get the next one. Every other one until we got them all down, get them all marked with a paint pen, and then we know we're even all the way around. And we'll go from there. So what I've got is obviously my crankshaft is right here, and I've got my socket right here. So me sitting in my lazy man's chair, I can just reach right up here, put this on, roll my engine over, and don't even have to get out of my chair. So I'll roll this on around to the next one, as you can see here. Get it in a nice clear spot where I can work with it. And then I'll put my next one on, and I'll continue that 2 more times till I get all my bolts in, get them all torqued down, and go from there. So I'll check back with you guys here in a couple of minutes. All right, guys, there we go. I got the torque converter hooked to the flex plate. Everything is final mounted. It's going to stay there. It's good to go. While I was under here, I went ahead and got my transmission braces up here to the block. Know how well you can see that. So got them bolted in. Same on this side, up here to the block. So I think we are all good to go right here. So I'm just waiting on a set of universal joints, and my new rear shocks will button up the rear and get that done. And then we'll clean up, do a little bit of painting under here, make everything kind of pretty. Next week, we'll shoot the shifter, the linkage, neutral safety switch. That should button all that up. We will go ahead and get our plugs, wires put on, all our fluids to get that set. And then we will go live with first startup and see if this blower goes through the ceiling of my shop, and or if it runs correctly. We'll get it painted, get it decaled, get a couple other special things put on here for you all, plus for myself, which I think is going to look cool. And then we are off to Florida to see what Homer will do. Maybe, just maybe, we'll do a test burnout for everybody. But anyway, other than that, if you made it through the video, I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you very much. Next week is going to be a blast. Don't miss out. And it's rare I ask this, but if you're watching, go ahead and drop us a sub. Check out our memberships. Get in on the license plate challenge, which is back here in the back. I've got an episode coming up on that very soon. I got some plates up at the house I got to hang. I apologize to those of you that are waiting for them to be hung up, but I promise you I'll get to it. As you can tell, we're just extremely busy right now. Got a bunch of cool stuff going on with the old Marrow back here. We'll show you that next week's episode. Plus Linda back there, as you can see, her front end's way up in the air. I'll let you figure out why that is. All right, cool, guys. We'll catch you next week. BRG out.